Welcome. This is session 3, where we will describe the need for ICTs in disaster risk management. The objectives of the session are to provide an overview of ICTs and what kind of technologies are considered as ICTs, and to show examples of their general uses in disaster risk management. So what are ICTs? These are a varied set of goods, applications, and services that are used to store, produce, process, distribute, and exchange information. So a computer is considered ICT, a telephone is considered ICT. Now let's look at examples of ICTs and their uses in disaster risk management. First, we have databases and geographic information systems, or GIS. Databases are frequently used to store data or records of observations about hazards, about vulnerability characteristics of the elements of risk such as people and their dwellings and livelihoods, but also about various aspects of capacity to deal with disasters. The Geographic Information System, or GIS, is used to store spatial data or data about geographic features, and then analyze the spatial patterns such as the spread of disease, the spread of settlements, the possible flow of a flood, and the optimal location of an evacuation center. Now we have a slide showing some sensors. Sensors are gadgets for collecting specific observations of phenomena. They could collect information on humidity, precipitation, soil moisture, sound, ground displacement, elevation, the flow of water, and others. This next slide shows a network of all the sensors used for measuring weather phenomena. As you can see, they may be installed on the ground or on airplanes, on ships, on floating buoys in the ocean, and on satellites. And they are networked together to store the information in the same database server, for example, where scientists can later access this and analyze this to make weather predictions. Now this slide shows technology that you will know. Mobile phones. They help you send text messages, make calls, even take pictures. And these are all basic functions that can help in communicating information about disaster risk. So they have a lot of applications now in disaster risk management. The next slide shows a volunteer group that warns people about possible tsunamis. They use a variety of technologies such as TV, computer, telephone, public address system, and even megaphones. This is the last example of technology commonly used in disaster risk management, the Internet. It contains websites of all kinds of information relevant to disaster risk management. Here we have an example of the International Disaster Database, or MDAT. You can obtain profiles of disaster events that occurred in specific countries, break it down by type of hazard, and aggregate for a group of countries. So now we come to the slide that talks about how disaster risk management needs information. May I quote Marco Niscala, Secretary General of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. He said, "Information bestows power. At-risk communities need information as much as they need water, food, or medicine, or shelter before, during, and after disasters. Information is a capacity for disaster risk management. It improves the quality of decisions. And so the DRM field, or disaster risk management field, is hungry for information. Communication is also a capacity for disaster risk management. Risk is perceived differently by individuals and groups, and so risk messages have to be transmitted and discussed with the objective of having a shared understanding of what must be done to manage or reduce disaster risk." The next slide shows the information management cycle, where we collect and collate data or observations about what is happening, let's say during an event. We analyze the data, and this produces us information. information which we can use to make decisions. So we learn from this information, and this gives us knowledge about what's happening in terms of disasters, what are the factors that lead to disasters, and then how we may potentially reduce the risk of disasters. From this knowledge, we convert it and apply it into action. We take steps based on knowledge, and then we collect data on how well we are doing our actions. So this is why it is called the cycle. We go back to the beginning, and then we do this over and over to improve our decision making. Next slide has a matrix showing some examples of DRM activities and their information needs. So for example, in building construction, whether we want to build houses, schools, or hospitals, we want to know how hazards can produce damage to these buildings and how the hazards may create that damage. And then this can be fed into what we call a building code that guides how strong our buildings have to be and the manner of construction that we have to undertake. If we want to provide early warning to people about oncoming hazards, maybe we need to provide this warning so they'll know, do they need to already evacuate and where do they go? So then we need information about when the hazard will arrive and what are safe places to go to and how to get there. The next slide summarizes the use of ICTs to reduce disaster risk. So first, they can be databases for managing logistics, for mapping, for modeling and forecasting. They can be decision support tools, knowledge tools, to help us with early warning, mitigation, and response planning. They help us share information and promote cooperation, to provide a channel for dialogue and information exchange. They help us communicate and disseminate information, particularly to the at-risk communities. And finally, it helps us teach and learn and raise awareness and promote a culture of safety for everyone to imbibe. So I'd like to show you a case study of Project 4636, which was applied in Haiti. Here, volunteers around the world collected SMS and Twitter and Facebook feeds. Those were the requesting assistance from Haiti would send out help through Twitter, Facebook, or SMS. And then the volunteers would verify the request as much as they could. And then they would send it to a coordinated response center in Haiti itself. This way, a lot of people were involved in processing the information in as fast a time as possible and improving, therefore, the time and quality of the response to save those who needed help. The next slide shows a website of the Philippine Met Agency, PAGASA. They use social media to send out alerts about oncoming typhoons, and they use this, for example, for Super Typhoon Maggie. So briefly, let's summarize the points to remember from the session. First, ICTs can be described as a basket of tools that we can use for disaster risk management. Second, different disaster activities have different information needs for different audiences. And finally, access to reliable, accurate, and timely information at all levels of society is crucial for disaster risk management. So we've gone through the theoretical part of the primer. The next sessions in the primer will go through the specific applications for the phases of disaster risk management.